Not yet. There it is. We are live. Welcome to Bone Nose Health, and I am joined by Dr. Eyal Levit. Are you in New York City right now, or Brooklyn?
Yes, in Brooklyn, that's right.
Brooklyn, where I grew up, my favorite place. And he is joining us to talk about skin, and this is part of our Healthy for Life series. We have 25 contributors in our book. We're launching February 4th, 2025 here, folks. Today is, I never know what day it is, January 26th, 2025. So we're almost a little over a week away from our book launch on Amazon. If anybody wants an advanced reader copy, you should be able to reach out to Dr. Eyal, to myself, to any of the other contributors, and we should be able to get you an advanced reader copy. And we're hoping folks can buy that ebook on February 4th for $1.99 to help us reach bestseller status. How many books can you get for $1.99, let alone we have tons of information? That's why I decided to do this podcast series with all of the contributing authors like Dr. Eyal here. And there's just so much information. I want to get right to it. So we're talking about skin as the first line of defense. Doctor of dermatology, that was your specialty, board certified dermatologist, yes? And you
Yes.
have a dermatology practice. So tell us a little bit about what brought you to skin protection, dermatology, the whole world of that.
First of all, Bo, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here with you. It's an honor to be part of those 25 contributors. I was reading some of the chapters, and they are absolutely fantastic. This is not only informative for others, but this is a resource and information for me. The energy, the concise, useful pearls that are in this book are, in my opinion, a must read for everyone who cares about health and longevity and about their family and environment. So, again, thank you. It's really, truly a pleasure to be part of this team.
Yeah, that was
What brought me what brought me into dermatology is actually my mother. I did not want to be a physician. I wanted to be an athlete, a writer, a teacher, but we have a tradition of family physicians, and add to it the story that they constantly reminded me that as Jews, unfortunately, politics played a major role in our survival, and physicians had better chance of survival. So that, in the background of coming from the old Soviet Union and the pogroms, a word that started actually in Russia, was coined by how they did it. So physicians over there had a little better protection status, because if they knew what they um, were doing, they were often closer to the kings. Of course, if something was wrong, they would be the first also to be removed. So
yeah.
anyway, so that's how I got into medicine and into dermatology, was because my mom told me it's a good field to go. You're gonna be with a family, as opposed to gynecology, which is all the males in the previous generations were in. And I have to say that it's not true. Meaning, while I um, don't always have to, or rarely have to go at 2 in the morning to see patients, it has happened before. I think that the schedule depends on your care. And if you care about the patients, they're constantly in your mind, on your mind, and you're constantly trying to figure out how to help them. And I love it. The reason I like dermatology is because I'm able to see all ages, and I'm able to show the patient right away. You see, I gave you this treatment, it worked. You didn't follow my instruction, it didn't work. There's no, most of the time, you don't have to go into internal tests. There's no MRI or X ray or press over here that only I know how to press in order to prove to them that this intervention worked or didn't work. It's basically they can see it.
Yeah, and it seems like you have a very prominent, busy practice in New York City, correct?
Yes.
And that's just your last name, Levit Dermatology. Anyone can look that up. We have the link in for the website in our show notes. Before we continue, I do have to do a quick shout out, a little commercial for our sponsor here. Element makes a lot of this possible. LMNT, stay salty. I'd love to hear your thoughts as well, how that impacts skin. Electrolytes, it's 1,000 milligrams of sodium. It has potassium and magnesium as well, things that we tend to be deficient in. If anybody wants to order, any order will get you a full sample pack here with my link, drinkelement.com/fitcare. So any thoughts on electrolytes? And I always think, I moved to Colorado, my skin still does get a little, especially on my hands. I wash my hands 20, 30 times a day. I try to use Dove soap to get a little bit more moisture, less of the harsh kind of things that are killing a lot of the bacteria. But yes, electrolytes is a little bit of what you're talking about here, is hydration from within, keeping a healthy gut biome, and again, things like electrolytes. In Colorado, especially where I live, whenever anyone travels here, I say, hey, make sure you're getting your electrolytes in. Otherwise, you're going to hit a little bit of that acclimation processing, and sometimes that can hit folks a little harder. You're getting headaches, and people come here and they drink. That's a whole nother thing. But so, any thoughts on electrolytes? Getting enough sodium, potassium, magnesium into your day?
100%. I also practice that and recommend that on a daily basis for a healthier function of the heart, the blood pressure, and obviously the skin as well. People forget that the skin, just like the leaves of a flower or a tree, also absorb a lot of electrolytes and a lot of pollutants potentially. And
Mm-hmm.
therefore, in the chapter, I describe how important it is to help those necessary ingredients enter through the skin. Although it's a barrier, we have different carrier now available proteins that help pass those ingredients, and therefore it's another important factor. You have to make sure those ingredients are pure and the vehicle and everything else are healthy, because sometimes you can see in the sunscreens they have some ingredients that are unhealthy, and just I use that because that's the thing that we use most of the. Oh, and I see you're applying something on.
Yeah, so I did want to. I don't do this for everyone, but the oil of Olay complete. This is what they had at Costco. I thought it was the best option at the time. And you asked me before we went on, about the active ingredients, which folks, when we talk about food, I think it's becoming a little bit more prominent to look at the ingredients on the back. The active ingredients here: octinoxate, 6%, and zinc oxide, 3%. So give us your thoughts on that. I'm still going to put it on my face, and don't tell me to. But
So Olay is a great company, but I tell people it's not, and you're indoor. Okay, there's a lot to unpack over here, but I tell people it's not about the company; it's about the ingredients. And when I look, I've always said, and lately it's become a staple of asking that question. But before, people were looking at me as if I was talking a different language. The active ingredients are really key, and you prefer not to have a sunscreen but a sunblock. The difference is the sunscreen has chemicals that deactivate the free radicals of the UV, and basically you have a chemical reaction like cooking on your skin by itself, producing heat and damage on your skin. Beyond that, some of those chemicals do penetrate internally. And just if you want to test if it's not good for the environment, probably it's not good for us. This ingredient, the one that you mentioned, the octinoxate, has been actually banned from the certain islands like Hawaii, Palau, because of its effect on bleaching the coral reefs. And just as it's not healthy there, it's not healthy for our skin as well. The other thing is to remember is that any chemical that you apply on your skin, even like you have applied it right now indoors and you're planning to go outdoors, like in the Cinderella stories, time starts, ticking, and you have about 2 hours at the most. Some of them are up to 4 hours, but from the moment you apply it, it starts doing its action and stops working 4 hours. On the other hand, a physical blocker like the one that you do have, which is very good, zinc, titanium, those are physical blockers, and they reflect the light like putting on a shirt on
mm,
your body, and until you wash it off or sweat it off, it will remain. Another important thing to have is iron oxide. It's not considered an active ingredient, but those are the three ingredients that you want to look, because people forget we have also UV damage from the blue light we're talking right now on the computer or the phone. And this also not only causes aging, but also causes pigmentary changes and can increase the risk of skin cancer. And the zinc and titanium do not block fully in the ultraviolet A range. They block in the B range. The B called because of burn. If you stay in the UVB range, you get more of a burn. UVA, you get more of a tan. And some people think it's healthy. It's not healthy. And regarding the
Uh,
worry about vitamin D that everybody is saying, you're talking about electrolytes, vitamins, the vitamin D, if you go now, there was a study at Harvard where they had, of course, who would do the study, who would be willing to, is the students, graduate students. So they had them in bathing suits, standing outdoors in the sun and measured the vitamin D in the wintertime, and that was zero absorption.
mm.
So unless you are at the equator or during the summertime, your vitamin D from the sun, your ability to synthesize it through the skin is null. And therefore, it's important to supplement it. And obviously, the supplementation, I tell people if you want it to be effective for the bone, you have to take it with K2, not just vitamin D3. And most people are aware of it right now.
Or you can eat natto, if anyone knows what natto is. Have you ever had natto?
No, and I don't
It's
know
one
what
of
it
the
is.
It's a fermented soy. I believe it's obviously it's an Asian. I don't know if it's a delicacy, but it's one of the more smelly foods you could eat in the world. So that's one of the reasons. Yes, K2 is a rarity, but they did discover or that K2 helps the absorption of D3. So I appreciate you mentioned that, and yeah, that's one of those random little fun facts I know. So it sounds like I should not use any more of this oil of Olay, specifically the sunscreen, and we're looking for um, what do you think of sorry, we're not sunscreen but sun block?
Block.
Yes. So that's again one of these foundational skills. That's our heading subtitle of the book we're talking about here: foundational skills for parents, teachers, mentors, and the kids they love. And it's not just for those with kids in their lives. Obviously, we're just talking about general health stuff. We're trying to put a little spin on it to make sure it can get into the hands of the people who need it the most, which might be the next generation. So really good stuff. I did want to
Bo.
ask. Yes.
I need it. I need that book. I'm planning to read it and take notes because this is how we grow. I think if we think that we know everything, like Socrates, who was considered the wisest, right? Apollo said he's the wisest. We need to understand that we actually don't know. And when we're open to that idea, then we can learn. And I'm excited to read through the chapters and learn.
This is the Dunning-Kruger effect. Yes, if you're familiar with that one, where folks who have a little bit of information feel like they're very expert on it, and the more people study and the more wise and intelligent they are, the less they realize they realize they don't know as much as they thought they did. And there's always lifelong learning. When I got into physical therapy school, I said I am never going to be bored again in my life. Like there's just no reason to be bored because there's just always something to learn, and we're going to always be changing what we have. I'm sure you heard this in medical school as well, as one of the more famous anecdotes that they tell you half of what you learned in school is going to be completely wrong within 5-10 years. Research is going to prove it wrong. The problem is when you're learning it, you don't know which half, so you got to learn all of it. But that's one of my favorite things in medicine and healthcare. But for the consumer who we're talking to here, we're trying to distill this all down into really bite-sized information. Speaking of bite-sized, that's the other thing I've heard about skincare products is if you would not eat it, you probably shouldn't put it on your skin because it's getting absorbed a lot of the same ways. How do you feel about that saying? I mean, I don't know how you feel about
Yeah, I like that saying. I think it's wise. Um, not yeah. It's a good. I think it's a smart thing to judge by, but not always correct. I mean, we
it's a
can
little
think
more
about
like social media, just quick
right, right,
snippet.
right, 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 and we can think about the clothes that we put on. We definitely don't want to eat them, but we still put them on. But yeah, I mean, you got Teflon in the non-wrinkle clothes, and that, in my opinion, has led to 100% if you look at the blood samples of people elevation, and that is one of the multiple triggers. I like how you in your podcast you say make yourself 1% better each day, the 1% better, which is a tall order on a daily basis, but a very wise one. um, like uh, the book that was published by Uh, what's his name?
James Clear, James. No.
No, no, the one that outliers. They're basically
Oh,
making,
Malcolm Gladwell. Malcolm Gladwell.
well, Malcolm Gladwell. That's right. So make yourself better 1%. The famous uh, British cyclist. That was the way he got them into the number one position.
Mm.
But the the I forgot where I was going to with that. But yeah,
That's.
go ahead.
I was gonna. Yeah, I don't want to have you lose your train of thought if you were gonna get there. But yeah, the thing I want to take what we're talking about here. We're talking about sunscreen versus sunblock. There's all these informational pieces out there similar to. It feels like skin is kind of getting there. Where in the 90s, you'd have the time cover with the eggs on top and saying, "Hey, eggs are good for you," and then eggs are bad for you, and cholesterol, this scary word. Same thing with things around the skin. I do feel like there's a lot of fear tactics, and I think a lot of people get overwhelmed with like, oh, I need to change again. I can't buy certain types of clothing, like you're alluding to. I don't want to poo-poo it, but I guess that's the question. Or even I had another guest on talking about environmental toxins who was dealing with some Lyme disease and different chronic conditions. And she mentioned, you really have to use natural fabric conditioner and dryer sheets, or just never use dryer sheets, basically, because that's going to ultimately impact your skin and get absorbed into your skin. The chemicals of the dryer sheet. We tend not to walk around rubbing the dryer sheet on our face. And I think it almost, when you think about it, it seems silly, but then at the same time, you start putting these pieces together, like, yeah, that is going in my skin. So I guess I 100% agree. The absorption, I think it's a hard scientific fact to disprove that the absorption of a lot of these minerals, including magnesium, is a lot better through the skin. But again, when it comes to our toxic environment we live in, all the things that we're exposed to, how realistic is it, and how much should we be, blocking EMF? How much should we be, detoxifying? Which again, I think I'd love to get your thoughts on an infrared sauna that's become a very big trend. I'm a bigger fan of the old school, more Swedish, Finnish type, just sweat it out. So maybe let's simplify the question there and come back to a little bit of the bigger picture real quick. Any thoughts on the infrared? I saw you shaking your head, but for the listeners, they didn't see you shaking your head. So what do you think? Infrared versus traditional? Just the concept of sweating it out. That is our best way to excrete things versus like all the detoxes that get sold out there. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that whole topic.
So whenever you do shortcuts, they shortchange you in many ways, and one of them is the sauna, however you want to pronounce it. It works, and it's been proven to increase longevity and health.
Or,
So
so just to
exposing,
clarify, the infrared versus the traditional, like which, or all
oh
saunas.
the well, the traditional one was
Right.
proven. The
So
traditional one.
that's my experience with the research. I just invested $9,000 to put a traditional one in my house, so I have a little bias, but that was based on a lot of research before pulling the trigger on that. So the infrared, for folks listening, is the theory is, hey, it only goes up to like 120 degrees, from my understanding, Fahrenheit. So you're getting a little bit of that absorption, but they're theorizing it's more about the spectrum of light, which again I think is very hard to prove. Whatever the product you have is actually doing that thing. Maybe even a simple red light. If I just change, this Ring camera that I have as a yellow light to a red light, that might have an impact on my skin and my hormones and all these detoxifying concepts. But I guess that's the question: is it just the heat? The one I have goes up to 200 degrees Fahrenheit. I sit in there for 20 to 30 minutes. You can go and see all these biohacking folks who talk about the protocols, and you want to do 20 minutes in, then you go do a cold plunge, then you do another 20, 30 minutes in, and that's the ideal, and you need to be at these temperatures. We can get into the granular details, but I just wanted to get, your sense from a dermatological standpoint, or is it just better for me to go out and jog for 30 minutes and get a sweat going that way?
I think each one has its own benefits. Um, from my research and my personal experience, if you do decide to do and to get the benefit of longevity, not just skin exercise from hot and cold exposure, you need to allow the body to settle into that heat. So 20 minutes is good for that. 20, 30 minutes, fine. And then you do not want to go into a cold plunge. You want to remain there. You want to allow it to remain for at least an hour for it to generate the necessary stimulation of the sirtuins, which are helpful to repair the DNA damage and help prolong your healthy life, the longevity. Same thing with cold plunge. You want to make sure that you stick around there, not 20 minutes, but depending on the temperature, we're talking about 1 or 2 minutes at the most. More is becoming unhealthy, and you want to allow the body to develop the brown fat. So one of the ways that I do it, cheap way, instead of buying that bath, is I run outdoors without the shirt on, whether it is -4 degrees or whatever temperature it is, and then I take some cold showers, and the cold shower, it's 2 3 minutes. That is enough time, in my opinion, but you know about that better than me, so you can I would love to
Yeah.
hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I think from the scientific perspective, there's a lot there. And I think ultimately we can throw out data statistics, and I think you can find a study that says something slightly different. The infrared sauna people, I think, have certain studies that they're citing. I don't think they're as strong. And again, without getting too granular, did my podcast with Dr. Ilana, our lead author of our Healthy for Life book here. And she is a MD as well as you, and so a lot of background in the research and the science, and she specializes a little more in functional medicine. I bring all this up to say, understanding actual research, how research gets done, the hierarchy of a meta-analysis compared to a randomized controlled trial, compared to what we see a lot of these companies putting out, which is a lot of times it can be manipulated, it can be sponsored. A lot of the bad results don't get published. There's all these different ways we can be skeptical about research. I'll give a quick shout out for anyone on social media who wants a good resource. Is BioLane, is Lane Norton. I don't know if you've seen him, Doc, but he basically comes out and somebody says, hey, like if you jump in the cold plunge for this much, it's been proven to improve your testosterone by 1,000x, and all these crazy claims. So he comes out and he says, let's look at what the actual randomized control trials, human randomized control trials say. So there's a lot there to the research. So again, I hope. I feel like, and I talked about this a little while ago, around 2016. There were things going on in the world that we we can say certainly pushed the narrative of science and research and evidence. And then 2020, COVID, certainly even I'd say accentuated that further. We are living in one of the most, without I think debate, that we have the most access to all information in the world ever in the history of mankind. And at the same time, we are almost more confused because you're getting all these mixed messages. So that's where I was trying to go back before we dove into the infrared sauna conversation of, again, like, should we be avoiding dryer sheets? Should we be avoiding, or if we're doing, again, sunscreen, I tried mineral sunscreen. I feel like I have to reapply much more frequently, or mineral sunblock, now we should say. But yeah, so trying to make these little changes, trying to do these things. And again, I highly recommend folks go, if they do want answers as best they can. I don't want Dr. Eyal to do this in the next 8 minutes or so. So go check out his chapter, go get our book. There's not just his chapter, but 25 plus really good informational chapters. So yeah, to bring it back, what do you think of the litany of information, even around skincare, dermatology? We start to see, again, these concepts of zinc oxide versus all these different active ingredients. I'd love, again, to simplify the question to say, how do folks go? Do they just find a trusted resource like yourself, go on your website, go on your blog, go on your social media, and just say, I'm just going to do whatever Dr. Eyal says? Or where can folks go to bring those foundational skills outside of the chapter, which is the intent of our book here?
Well, I think there are associations for every specialty, and those associations put out information, and they're a great resource for the basic information. Because of there's always politics, and I'm not mentioning one specific association. There are also legal ways of things to be presented, and whether we like it or not, influence of different pharmaceuticals. As much as it's supposed to be unbiased, there's no human being which would be unbiased, and therefore you take it as the base, whatever you see in the associations, and then you do need to find a voice that you find speaks to you, whether it is a local dermatologist or someone else. And even if they do speak to you, you always want to challenge them, either directly or through researching around, and then get back to the with a question to them. And depending on the way they answer, if it's in a defensive way, then there is something wrong, I think, with the person. If it's in a curious and inclusive way where they take you in to be their partner in answering the question, then I think they're more interested in your health, in your benefit, as opposed to in their ego. And that's how you choose at the end whether it's someone who you would trust, or someone that you should be careful of.
Yeah, that's a fantastic answer. I love that. And I think that's a lot of the information we're trying to get out of the book. And I think that's a theme. Now, I believe you're my sixth or fifth or sixth interview from the authors. And so, yeah, I think we're seeing a lot of these same themes emerge. So really, really fantastic. I did want to touch base with you about. Oh, hello.
Yeah, but the one thing
Yeah.
that I lost the train of thought was the idea about the 1% was, yes, if the Teflon alone is not the issue, I found that it does play a role in hair loss as well and other things. So when people are, let's say, cooking, their even the cookingware. I mean, I'm sure one
Mm,
of the author spoke about that, but we stopped having in my house cookware with those Teflon, even though it makes things easier to cook. It doesn't stick. We prefer to have the cast iron ones.
yeah.
But again, the different things we need to think about that, and it's not that one thing alone. If we were in a vacuum only exposed to one thing alone, we'd be fine. But it's the variety of things all together affecting and bombarding our DNA, causing mutations, and that's another reason why, the electrolytes, the supplements, the vitamins, in the right amount, with under supervision of someone who knows how to handle it, is probably the best way of allowing us to defend ourselves against what we know and what we unfortunately don't know yet.
Yeah, that's a great that takes me. I'm gonna steal two other podcasts that I really like. One is, what do you think 20 years from now, 30 years from now, we're gonna look back on 2025 when we're recording this and say, folks are gonna say, I can't believe they were doing that the same way we look back in the 1950s, and there's doctors delivering babies with a cigarette hanging out of their mouth. So like ridiculous things like that we look at now. Do you think there's anything you can point to that, again, especially with skincare dermatology, I think is a super interesting topic that doesn't get talked about enough? Is there any particular trend or thing that we consider commonplace now that we're going to look back in the future and say that? Other than maybe Teflon, that's a good answer too.
I think the future, famous last words. I think in the future, most of what we will be looking at would be the anti-aging,
Mm,
and that's why I've already been working it in the last a little over 10 years, specifically in dermatology in the last 5 years, and using a variety of supplements and even genetic hacking,
mm.
which I've been doing to help variety of disorders, including even things outside of my field, because there were no one else who was willing to help them, like multiple sclerosis or ALS
And you,
and
you you came up with a patent for
inflammatory
type
bowel
one.
disease.
You came up
Right.
with a patent for type 1 diabetes.
Yes, yes, for type 1 diabetes. They're close friends of mine. He's like my own son. I consider them that way. And so when he was sick, and they couldn't get help, and they were flying all around the world, I went around and tried to figure out how to help them, and successfully was able to help them. It's a long story, maybe for another time. But yeah, and the same thing. I think the thing that I think though would, if it will take place, will change the future. That's the second thing, right? Will change the future would be UVC systems.
Mm,
So, water filtration. When we realized we need to filter water, the typhoid epidemic practically stopped. It used to be 100 out of 100,000 people would get typhoid fever. There were like a lot of deaths from that in the US in the 1900s. And then 1908, the first overhaul in New Jersey took place. And just less than 20 years after, the number fell by a huge amount. There were only like 38 people per 100,000 that were getting sick. And now we have like maybe 400 a year, and most of them are from outside the country. And we still go to other countries and we get sick from the water. So the same idea has to happen with the air. So the idea came to me when it was during the COVID pandemic and everybody was panicking, and I said, you know what, let's not panic. And I divided my office workers into three teams, and each one was responsible for a different, and I know we're coming to the end of the show. So the idea is, I think UVC uh, clearing the air would be the future and will help reduce a lot of the viruses, bacteria, fungi, because there's only two, I believe, organisms that can survive the UVC system. And using it as my personal example, nobody in our practice got infected while in the office from one another, even though they got infected from either friends or from the transportation that they were using. They came in, they didn't know they had the COVID, they didn't pass it to us. And even in common areas where in the lunchroom where we're sitting without masks and all that stuff. And the reason was we installed in March of 2020 the UVC system in our office. So in my house, I didn't install it and I got sick from my son.
Hmm.
But and that's despite the vaccines and all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff. So I think that's really would be the second thing that would be the future. That and the anti-aging hacking that will help prevent disease as opposed to simply trying to help treat
mitigate
it.
the symptoms. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's amazing. That's incredible. I'd love to hear more about it, as you alluded to. We're kind of running up on time, but I did want to give you one other quick question, if you can. Again, under $100. You mentioned this UVC system. To me, it sounds expensive. And again, maybe it's more feasible, maybe it's more realistic to get. But and again, we're taking this off our shopping list. But is there anything under $100 that folks, based on your experience, can do for the health of their skin? Best purchase, best investment, maybe getting a consultation with a board certified dermatologist, things like that once a year, whatever recommendation you have there, or a product under $100 that folks can go do as soon as they finish listening to this.
Yes, two things. Number one, supplements. Into that, I would say NMN. I've been doing it the last 10 years. NMN, NR, all those are NAD precursors. They help the skin. I've used it to help reduce precancers, as well as, I shouldn't say that because I haven't done a double-blind placebo-controlled
Yeah.
study, but I've seen skin cancers also reduce in number, especially in those who are deficient in that.
Real quick on that. So the thing, I think it's gone away, but so NAD that he's alluding to is one of the main things that became very popular. People would go do IV drips of NAD. It seems injecting the NAD directly in research based. David Sinclair, who's one of the top longevity experts out there, he was a big fan of this. But it seems the research was not bearing out to inject NAD directly because it's not getting absorbed as well. Is that based on your understanding as well?
It's not as good. It still works doing subcutaneous injections, but it's much better to either do it IV or to do the supplement NMN. And I think it depends on your GI tract, how well you absorb it. And I agree with Dr. David Sinclair that you need 1,000 as opposed to the studies that showed you need 500 milligrams.
Mm.
But they've been doing the vitamin B3, which is not as effective, nicotinic acid, nicotinamide, and they've shown it in a Harvard study in 2015 that in a year it reduces by 23% the risk of skin cancer, squamous cell, and actinic keratosis, which is the precancers. So that's good. The other thing is the vitamin C. It will brighten your skin. So if you're looking at applying it topically, you can take it orally. It will also, the studies have shown that it will help. 1,000 milligram, not too much, with a lot of water to avoid the acidification of your blood and kidney stones. And the you said to me, so one thing was the supplement, and the other one is get a complete skin exam, because melanoma unfortunately is a big killer, and it's not only in sun exposed areas. So it's not only multiple sunburns that lead to that. There are a lot of other factors, like you alluded to it, the 1%, a little here, a little there, that we're not aware of all those different factors, whether it's in the food or in the environment. They definitely play a role. I had a guy not long ago, he was exposed in his childhood to arsenic because they were using it to treat the root canals and he developed weird skin cancer, specifically basal, just on his back. It wasn't even on his face. It wasn't sun exposure. It was the arsenic, and he was unaware of it. So all those things, doing a full skin exam is key. And sunblock, like you said correctly, with zinc, titanium, and iron oxide are the best ones to get under $100.
Awesome. I love it. Big other things that I'll just throw is real quick. And again, I'd love to keep going. I think it's a very interesting topic that I haven't covered nearly enough on this podcast, and I think it doesn't get talked about enough. But one to your point about the sunburns, again, just in general, avoiding that burn, avoiding getting red is just generally good advice. It seems for long term health care, health quality. Same thing with wrinkles and things like that. Yes.
100% correct. Sun ages us the most, although initially it gives us that glow, so people like it. They see the acne sometimes going away, but that's only temporary. Afterwards, it clogs your pores and there's more acne later. So you need to look at it not only as the immediate effect, but also in the long term effect.
And
And that's
and
something people
and
forget to do.
and it sounds like it's the right amount of sun exposure. We're talking about light as a nutrient in with one of our other co-authors, Dr. Laurel, I believe. So yeah, light as a nutrient. Andrew Huberman, one of the big again health podcasters, putting information out there, talks about a lot about light exposure as an important part to set our circadian rhythm, work with our overall health. I think when I hear again folks initially have that good feel from the sun, I think it is just raising up some of those levels that they're probably deficient in. That's probably the same thing with vegetarians. I always like to make this quick concept is when you cut out the standard American diet, when you stop eating McDonald's and things like that, and you're going to switch to a vegetarian diet, sure, you're going to feel better, but then you start having deficiencies over time of things that you're just not getting. So again, this is tricky stuff, guys. That's why we're putting out a book here, hopefully as a resource, as a foundational skill toolkit that hopefully helps you address a lot of these concepts. We do not get a user's guide to the human body the way we do to our car or to our houses or to our, at least we have parenting books and there's plenty of books about health. But yeah, again, the information can get very overwhelming, very confusing. So I think that's our goal here is to demystify, demythologicize. I don't know if that's a word. But yeah, so
Will
Dr.
become
Eyal,
one.
it'll become one. Thank you for joining us. I'll do a quick one more time shout out. Folks can go to my link, drinkelement.com/fitcare. Get your sample pack of all 8 flavors. Get your electrolytes. We talked about how important that is for your health. A lot of times, if you're having sugar cravings at the end of the day, sometimes you're actually just deficient in sodium. So I'm a big fan of this. I have some in here with my coffee. I'm doing the chocolate variety, fantastically tasty. I'm a big fan of it. Again, folks, go out, get it. Dr. Eyal, thank you again for joining us here. Any closing thoughts or places where folks can go find you?
No, thank you for having me. By the way, there is an amazing show that I'm honored to be part of. It's a live reality show on Doctor TV Network, and they can see some exciting things and some of the thoughts about dermatology, and hopefully that's a resource too.
Where
And the
can
book,
folks find that one?
it's on Roku and other places. I'll try to put it also on my YouTube channel, but
Awesome.
thank you very much. It was an honor, and I'm the book. You guys have to get the book. It's a must. And if you get it before and write reviews, it will really help more people become aware of this amazing resource. Our goal is to make the world a better place, and one of our mottos at Levit Dermatology is "Health and beauty is our duty." And I believe this motto goes to all the authors in here. They all want to get us all healthier, and really, it's not. I don't think we're gonna get any money from this. I'm not looking for anything. Really, it was a love effort, and we want to make everybody benefit from what we have taken centuries, years to learn, to synthesize, and basically give the food to you.
Yeah, 100%. Again, that book is Healthy for Life. We are launching February 4th on Amazon. There are no pre-orders, but on February 4th, you'll be able to order the ebook for $1.99. And we do encourage folks to go get the paperback. And obviously, it's a much more encompassing experience if you do it that way. So consider helping us out, leaving a review, as Dr. Eyal said. And other than that, guys, I know I got at least 1% better today. I hope you guys did too.
I did too.
All right. So we'll see you